So next topic would be hacking web application, and for that I'm using my burp suite. So over here you can see the interface. So जब आप यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे 3 टैब्स दिए होंगे आपको, जिसमें आपके यहाँ पे टेम्परेरी प्रोजेक्ट्स दिए होंगे, न्यू प्रोजेक्ट्स दिया होगा और आपका एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोजेक्ट दिया होगा यहाँ पे. So over here we're going to use the temporary project. If you have the old version, we're going to simply use this one, and we can try different things. So over here I'm going to use the temporary projects and select next. Use burp suite default credentials. So we're going to use the default credentials over here, or we can use the load configuration file जो कि हमने predefined बनाई होगी, and start burp suite. And for learning burp suite, I have one book over here, which is the burp suite cookbook. So if you are new in the burp suite, you can learn the burp suite from the cookbook, which has 11 modules over here, and the 3 chapters are important over here. Getting started with the burp suite, you can see. So it's a 2018 version, so it will be good. And you can see what are the topics we're going to cover: getting started, software environment, setting up the burp suite labs, how to do it works, starting with command line and executables, listening for HTTP traffics using burp, getting over the burp suite tools, you can say injections. We're going to try all the things one by one, but the most important part is to repeater, decoder, intruder part. So यहाँ पे अगर आप देखो, so this is the interface of your burp suite, and over here you can see dashboard, target, proxy, intruder. We're gonna read about all the things one by one. So मैं आपको बता देता हूँ कि burp suite basically काम क्या करता है. ये हमारे वेब ब्राउजर के साथ एक प्रॉक्सी टनल क्रिएट करता है. मतलब हम जो भी हमारे जो ट्रैफिक्स होंगे एनालिसिस के लिए, वो हम लोग burp suite के थ्रू हम मॉनिटरिंग कर सकते हैं, जो कि हम ब्राउजर के थ्रू करेंगे. So for example, if you check burp suite proxy, so how does it looks like in the real life scenario? If you are using your PC and if you are using a server, you can communicate with the burp suite, because all the logs and the response will be stored on the burp suite part. So we can analyze all the things one by one. जो भी आप ब्राउजर पे करोगे वो आप अपने burp suite के थ्रू देख सकते हो इजीली, और जो सर्वर के साथ अगर कोई रिस्पांस आ रहा है तो वो भी हम burp suite के थ्रू एनालाइज कर सकते हैं. तो यहाँ पे जो चीज है, we can understand how the burp suite works like. So very first thing is to set up. So we're gonna read one by one all the things in our session. So let's go to the proxy, and in the proxy you can see proxy has 4 tabs: your intercept, HTTP history, WebSocket history, and options. So जो आपका ये जो intercept जो ये कोड है, ये मेजरली आपके रिक्वेस्ट को होल्ड ऑन करता है या इंस्पेक्शन करने के लिए काम आता है आपका. You can say the word inspection. Hello. Okay. अच्छा बोलो. क्लासेस लगाओगे अकाउंट का फोन कर. ठीक है. So over here you can see पैकेट इंसेप्शन के लिए हम लोग ये burp suite इंसेप्शन यूज करते हैं यहाँ पे. तो आप यहाँ पे देख सकते हो जो भी आपके पैकेट होंगे वो आप यहाँ पे you can say कंट्रोल कर सकते हो. यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो हिस्ट्री में आप उनके पूरे लॉग्स देख सकते हो, प्लस वेब सॉकेट, उनकी कनेक्टिविटी जिसमें URL, डायरेक्शन, एडिट लेंथ, द पैकेट साइज, इंक्रिप्शन स्टैंडर्ड, टाइमिंग, लिसनिंग पोर्ट और वेब सॉकेट किसमें हो रहा है. और बट सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है आपका ऑप्शंस टैब. ऑप्शंस टैब में अगर आप देखो, यहाँ पे आपका प्रॉक्सी लिसनर फंक्शंस होते हैं वाले, जैसे कि burp proxy uses listener to receive incoming HTTP request from the browser. You need to configure the browser to use your listener in the proxy server. तो अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो प्री डिफाइंड में ये पहले से सेट है 127.0.0.1, और वो किसमें सेट है, पोर्ट आपके 8080 में, आपके इंस्क्रिप्शन स्टैंडर्ड्स में. तो आप यहाँ पे मल्टीपल पोर्ट्स डाल सकते हो अकॉर्डिंग टू योर ओन नीड, या आप यहाँ पे होस्ट रीडायरेक्ट कर सकते हो क्लाइंट्स पे. जैसे आप बाइंड करना चाहते हो तो आप अपना पोर्ट यहाँ पे कोई भी दे दो नए प्रॉक्सी के लिए, और यहाँ पे आप देखो, यहाँ पे मेरा लोकल होस्ट 27001 दे रखा है और एक दे रखा है मेरा आईपी एड्रेस। तो ये जो आईपी एड्रेस हम यूज करते हैं किसी और सर्वर के प्रॉक्सी सर्वर्स को इंटरसेप्ट करने के लिए यूज करते हैं, बट यहाँ पे बाय डिफॉल्टली आपके 127.0.0.1 दे रखा है, तो यू डोंट नीड एनी ऑफ द थिंग्स राइट नाउ। And the most important part is the CA certificate, because अगर आप CA certificate install नहीं करते हैं तो जो ब्राउज़र होगा वो आपके सिर्फ HTTP पैकेट को कैप्चर करेगा, but our main agenda is to capture the HTTPS packet also. So each and install browser होगा वो आपके सिर्फ HTTPS packet also. So each and installation of system, and you can import or export this certificate for further tools. So over here you have to click on this and you will see that it will regenerate a Bugfoot CA certificate for the browser installation part. So I will say yes. So you can see the certificate has been generated on your localhost IP, which is your 127.0.0.1 port 8080. See, you can simply use 127.0.0.1 port 8080. So this is necessary for installing the CA certificate, because each and every CA certificate is valid for 7 days. And after 7 days, you have to install the CA certificate again. So CA certificate, so csert.der. See this one. If you open this one, this is a port swagger CA certificate, and you can see the time and expire also. It's only for 1 day. You can see subject. You can say issuer name, valid in issued certificate. You can see over here. All the things are given over here, and the public key. You can see one by one over here. You can simply open it. So सबसे ज़्यादा अपने ब्राउजर में इंस्टॉल करना पड़ेगा, जो कि आपके फायरफॉक्स की बात हो रही है. So over here you can simply go to your browser menu, open the preference. So you can go to the preference. In the preference, you have to do some changes. Example, you have to change your network proxy and your certificate installation. So over here, we're gonna look for network proxy, configure the Firefox Connect. Settings, in the settings you can see configure the proxy access the internet. By default ही आपका use system proxy होगा, जिसके थ्रू आप यहाँ पे रीड आउट कर रहे हो. अदरवाइज आपको यहाँ पे यहाँ पे मैनुअल प्रॉक्सी करना पड़ेगा, जिसमें आप अपने लोकल होस्ट की आईपी एड्रेस डालोगे, जो कि 127.0.0.1 पोर्ट 8080, बिकॉज ये आपके लोकल होस्ट के पैकेट को कैप्चर करेगा कनेक्टिविटी के लिए. ये सेम आपकी इनकमिंग एंड आउटगोइंग सेम होनी चाहिए, अदरवाइज इट विल नॉट वर्क. So you have to specify 127.0.1 and port 8080, and आपको यहाँ पे करना पड़ेगा use this proxy for all protocol, for SSL proxy, for FTP proxy. Let's see. Now you can see the connection will not work because you are simply visiting the HTTPS website. So यहाँ पे जो चीज़ है, यहाँ पे आप जो देखोगे, यहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा important है कि आपको CA सर्टिफिकेट इंस्टॉल करना ही पड़ेगा आपके पैकेट के लिए. So on the preference, you have to go for the certificate. Certificates, you can see view certificate, security devices. So view certificate करके आपको यहाँ पे authorities में जाना है. The authorities, you can see import. और अगर आप थोड़ा सा नीचे होंगे तो मेरे पास पहले से बहुत सारे CA ports वगैरह के सर्टिफिकेट मैंने इंस्टॉल कर रखे थे. So you can simply uninstall one by one. Let's import the CA certificate. Trust this CA certificate to identify a website. Trust the certificate for email addresses. You can say yes. The certificate is installed properly and okay. Now let's refresh this page of the google.com, and we can see now we can visit. हाँ जी बोलिए.
मुझे आपकी स्क्रीन जो है वो शो नहीं हो रही है, मतलब एक ही जगह वो स्टक है। आई डोंट नो, काफी देर से लगा नहीं शायद नेटवर्क इशू है, बट प्रेजेंटेशन के बाद चेक कर सकते हैं।
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see now this is working properly with the CA certificate that we installed, and the Google is running properly. So सबसे ज़्यादा important है कि आपको अपने नेटवर्क की प्रॉक्सी को सेट करना है और आपकी गूगल सर्टिफिकेट को इंस्टॉल करना है. And one more thing, जब आपका ये काम पूरा हो जाए, मतलब वर्कफ्लो का you have done with the workflow, you can simply go to the network, and in the proxy you can do it, use system proxy, otherwise your network will not work, remember. So over here, the first thing that we're going to do with the Burp Suite, I'm going to introduce you all the things one by one. For example, the first thing is your dashboard, which control all the necessary parts. For example, the spider part. You can see the new scan, the new live scan, and the number of issue activities you can see. Burp Suite, you can see the issue types also. They're going to give you the definition, what are the adversaries over here. What is XSS protection? What is your issue remediation? It will give you all the things and reference also, where you can read more things. For example, the most important part is your new scan. Why? Because there is a word called crawl and audit or crawling, which is also known as spider. The word spider with the spidering with the spider. So spidering जो आपका basically use होता है वो आपका crawl करने के लिए use होता है, आपके identify करने के लिए directory spider. Spider is another terms of mapping out the crawling of a web application. This application exercise is necessary to uncover links, folder, files, and present within the target application. In addition to crawling, Burp Suite can also submit forms in automated fashion. Spidering should occur prior to scanning part. It means you have to identify the first, you have to map the entire thing. You have to make a footprinting part, you can say. So for this thing over here, you have to put the URL, or you can use the crawl and audit. Crawl and audit, if you are using crawl and audit, it's going to find the bugs also, the OWASP according. So we're going to use the crawl process. And for example, I'm going to take this website. So let's remove the index.php. And over here, let's copy this one and just put in the crawl part. So the first thing, we need to identify the parameter values, the files, and the links which is connected with that server. So if you see over here, the crawling has been started, default configurations, and the number of requests which is transmitting from. So crawling depend करता है web server के size के ऊपर. So it will take some 1 hour or 2 hours or half an hour. It depends on the large scale of numbers of files. So you can see that unauthenticated crawling is occurring over there, and it's going to take some time. So the first thing is to identify the directories and subdirectories. And if you want to check all the directories which is going through over here, you can simply click on this. 30 seconds are left. And the number of requests which is transferring from the client side, which is attacker side. If you go to the event logs, you can see all the things one by one. If you find some criticals, errors and logs. Otherwise, if you want to see all the target parameter values, you can go to the target tab, which is your sitemap.url. तो अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे हमारी वेबसाइट कौन सी थी, php.burnhub.com. अगर आप इसको ओपन करो, you can see all the directories and sub directories which we were talking about. To identify, Ajax is a directory, Flash is a directory, and the Flash there is a file over there. Mode read write shop, you can see over here, and the code which is executing from the client and the server side. So one of the best thing in the burp suite, you can simply check the request and the response from the server side. And the response is 200. It means OK report. You can see there are some other directories also, but the most important part is to examine to identify the parameter values over here. You can see artist.php, artist is equal to 1. See, and most of the people or most of the pen testers, they are simply performing pen testing on the parameter values because they need a proper class to execute. And over here, you can simply examine with the help of length, the maximum length over here. Length of the file means it contains some data or a type. The type you can see these all are HTML and one is your text file. And you can see the title. Is it a picture or a details or you can see what are the things over there. And सबसे ज़्यादा important क्या है आपका method. वेब पीटी में जो मेथड आपका यूज होता है, यहाँ पे आपका गेट मेथड और पोस्ट मेथड पे डिपेंड करता है. गेट एंड पोस्ट. Get method, the data which is transferring from the URL section from the server side, from the browser, and the post method which is we are simply posting on the search parameter or any of the field. So सबसे ज़्यादा यहाँ पे जो important है वो आपका ये सारे URL sections है. और अटैकर सबसे ज़्यादा पेन टेस्टर्स हो गए जो सबसे ज़्यादा आपके ये पैरामीटर्स ही आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं. इसमें अगर आप देखो इस पैरामीटर के थ्रू आप मॉडिफिकेशन कर सकते हो, चेंजेस कर सकते हो एज अ टेस्टिंग पार्ट. You can see over here on the book they have given all the things one by one. So यहाँ पे जो सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है अगर आप देखो, यहाँ पे आप सीधा इसको ऐड टू स्कोप भी कर सकते हो या पैसिवली स्कैन दिस होस्ट. पैसिवली स्कैन मतलब सीधा आपके जो लॉग्स होंगे वो नॉर्मल डिफॉल्ट के या एक्टिवली स्कैन. और you can simply go for the scan type, but I will say add to scope will be important. Add to scope में क्या होगा कि वो स्पेसिफिक पैरामीटर को ही उस पर अटैक करेगा जैसे आपकी वेबसाइट पे. So you can add some multiple websites that you want to extend, or you can simply paste some URLs that you want to scan. अगर आपको कोई URL को भी स्कैन करना है तो आप यहाँ पे ऐड कर सकते हो. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यहाँ पे जो आप ऐड करोगे तो आपको जैसे मान लो कि तो भी वेबसाइट ले लेता हूँ नॉर्मल सी, गूगल पे चलते पहले थोड़ा सा. यहाँ पे अल्ट्रो म्यूचुअल एक वेबसाइट है. तो इसका अगर मैं साइन इन में जाता हूँ जैसे मुझे इसको स्कैन करवाना है, सो मैं यहाँ पे एडिट कर सकता हूँ, तो पेस्ट यूआरएल कर सकता हूँ, जिसको मुझे स्क्रॉल करना है आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए। यानी कि आप एक प्रॉपर डायरेक्टरी को भी दे सकते हो उसको स्कैन करने के लिए प्रॉपर, और you can simply check the site map. इशू डेफिनेशन में अगर आप देखो, इशू डेफिनेशन में आपकी सारी वल्नरेबिलिटीज के बारे में बता रखा है और उनके स्कैनर्स के बारे में। This listing contains the definition of all the issues that can be detected by the burp scanner. The burp scanner is basically used to identify the loopholes on the server side. For example, अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे स्कैन भी था। If you run the scanner, it will simply identify all the loopholes according to the database connectivity. इसमें आपके OWASP top 10 के सारे vulnerabilities दे रखे हैं, low, medium, informational, high, critical, and you can read one by one all the definitions of them. For example, let's try the scanner. In the scanner, it means crawl and audit. It's going to find the vulnerabilities and it's going to find the loopholes also. Or you can simply select the audit one which you want to scan, the specific parameter value. So let's try the crawl and audit in the proper way. So you can use your secure configuration login part. You can create the label username and password for securing your passwords or the resource codes. So let's use crawl and audit automation scan to identify the bugs on the server side. तो अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो डैशबोर्ड आपका हाईलाइट हो चुका है, क्यों? बिकॉज अब यहाँ पे क्रॉलिंग चल रही है विद ऑडिटिंग पार्ट। Now there are some issues tabs for like your high severity, your medium, your low, and your information. So over here you can see all the vulnerabilities now in a proper way. So it's going to take some time because it's going to take a heavy time to identify the loopholes on the server side. Because through the burp suite, it's also a scanner to detect the vulnerabilities of according to the web application. So the scan might take some time according to the need. And over here you can see one by one all the things which data is going to scan. तो लास्ट टाइम जो हमने एक्यूनेटिक्स किया था, नेसेस किया था, नेसेस की तरह बर्ब स्वीट पे भी एक स्कैनर टाइप है जिसको आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए आपके लॉग्स को या वल्नरेबिलिटीज को आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए यूज करता है, क्योंकि ये हर एक पैरामीटर पे उस पैरामीटर पे अटैक करने की कोशिश करके उसके वल्नरेबिलिटीज या लूपहोल्स को फाइंड करेगा। It's all about web application hacking to identify the loopholes with the automation tools. So over here, 12 seconds is left. We can either wait for this or we can move. And you will see if we find any of the loopholes over there, it's going to show you over this one. So now it's running again, the authentication part. So Over here, the number of times, 34 seconds are left, which is remaining, and these are the requests which is generated from the client. And we are waiting for the critical vulnerabilities over here. And over here in the target map, the most important part is your parameter values. And you can see the response code. If you see, if I just select this one, the response, the code will be changed over here. And the data is transferring from the URL section, which is your get parameter. And a proper request, if you see a proper request which is generated by the client, it's having the get, post, accepting languages, accept, user agent, the browser, the mediator, we can say. And over here we can say the connection is close or live. And you can see they have find some issues. Check this. There are 3 critical vulnerabilities. You see. We can see this one on the artist.php file. Activity servability, you can see, and this is critical, and you can see over here also, which is your CSS, this one, the sign up.php. And one is your login.php. And let's see security issues. What are the security issues they find? So over here we can see issue found was process scripting reflected. Password filled with autocomplete enabled. Clear text submissions. Password with autocomplete. Clear text submission over here and flash cross domain policy. Check this one. He simply use a script over there. So this is a request from the clients from the browser, sub-browser. So what we can do, we can simply right click over there and we can show response in browser. So what will be the impact which is going over here? We can see the result on the browser side. So I'm going to use show response in browser and it will generate a URL. So I'm going to copy this URL over here to check. Yes, there was a cross-site scripting which is reflected one. See. You can see all the vulnerabilities over here one by one. Clear text for submissions. The request, we can say. The policy framework, you can see the adversary to check the components. It's all about to read about the component and the attack type. So we can use it for different phases. और अगर आप यहाँ पे और देखो, they find 8 types of vulnerabilities in a critical. And look, the most important part is the request. How many times a request is going to create? 4,000 requests are a huge thing. Event logs, you can see. One by one over here. Issues and the auditing time. See. It find 2 bugs on the artist.php file. And there is list.php bugs also. So this is all about the auditing or finding out the loopholes on the server side. So you can see all the activities over here. Because the most important part is just basically focusing on the crawling attacking phase. 10 critical vulnerabilities. So if you are using a paid version of Burp Suite, it will give you lots of vulnerabilities according to the server side. So the most important part is to check one by one all the things. See, and it's going to take some time. Same on a target, you can simply examine the type of response from the server and the request. And you can also check the attack type. What are the bugs they find, issues you can see. and you can also see the adversaries, the type of vulnerability over here. But the most important part is to understand the client and server behavior. That is important. So over here, the crawling part was all about to identify the loopholes, the parameter values, and the scanner. You can see there are lots of other things. You can use it for passive scan, or you can use for active scan. If you're using the passive scan, it will make some low logs on the server side. See over here. Crawling setting, it provides you the ability to regulate the number of links deep spider would follow, which is additions for the website for robot.txt files. And you can see passive spidering, newly discovered content in the background, and it's turned by the default. Or you can see they are using some spider scope from statusnet type. So it depends on the active and spider passive. So what we can do, we can simply use any of this one. So, and if we are using the active scan, it's gonna make some logs over there. And it is also for auditing part. And it's in active scan, you're gonna make lots of logs according to your auditing part. So let's disconnect this one. So let's move to the next topic, which is our burp suites. And over here, we're gonna start with the repeater word. So when you identify these are the parameter values which can be used on the server side, we can take the help of repeater. So you can see repeater allows to slide changes to tweak the request. You can change the request with the help of repeater. And it is displayed in the left hand side of the windows. Go to the buttons allow and request issued, and response is displayed on the right side queries. In the layman language, if I ask you about what is the use of repeater, repeater is basically used to change the client request parameter. You can see one by one. So over here, let me show you one thing. For example, let's take any of the value. So from here, let me stop this one. 9,000 requests and 10 bugs you can see over here. So let's take any of the parameters. So I'm going to use, let's take search parameter. Let's see the search parameter. So this is a post request. You can see this is a post method. We have to post something on the server side, and you can see the response code and request and response. So over here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to redirect. I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to send this one to the repeater to change the parameter value. So you can see a proper request has been captured over here, and if you change or modify something, you can see the response code over here, a normal response. So if you see, send this one, and you can see the 200. It means execution part, and it's running over there. So you can see all the things one by one over here, the codes. And if you simply want to see the response code, you can right click and show response in browser to check the content type. So मैं अगर यहाँ पे execute करूँ, yes, there was a number that was right in 945203. But if I simply search for Craw, then it's saying okay, let's search for this one. Show response in browser. Search for Craw. So it was looking for the data which is typed like any of the name which is given over there. But the most important part, you can see a request contains some raw packets which contain a method, the data which is transmitting, the host which is your website, the accepting language encryption standard they are using, accept the starting point, accepting language English, user agent, the mediator that I'm using. The connection is now for close, cache control, refer the URL. You can see the domain name and the URL. The content type, the application they are using, the forum, the length of the packet. The most important part is the parameters. Most of the attackers they look for the parameter like your URL, body, or test. You can see the test, search for, go button. These are the parameters and the value they have given. Headers are important. Each and every data has a header part which contains the data type and the length of the packet, like your search for, which is given over here, and hexadecimal value, because on the server side they simply understand the binary codes, which is you can see over here. And the and the encryption standard. So what I'm going to do a simple changes. For example, let's run a simple JavaScript code to check. So over here, I'm going to run a simple Java code. So for example, I'm going to use script. And we're going to use an alert function. On that, I'm going to give crawsec. So we're going to pop up a page over there. So let's see. But first of all, I need to identify which parameter is reflecting back from the server side. So over here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some values over there. For example, hello 1, and hello 2. So over here, we simply change the value of the parameter. So we want to check which data reflect back from the server side. So if the data reflected from the server side, we can try to execute the malicious codes. So over here we can see it's 200. It means the OK report. So what I'm going to look for, I'm going to look for hello word. So from the hello word of the bytes, we can see the hello 1 was reflected, and that was our search parameter. So none of the parameter was executed. We can see only one. So it means the data which is transmitting or reflected back from the server side, we can place our payload over there. But there is a 50-50 chance the payload will execute or not. Depends on that time. So over here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply put my script over here, which that was crawsec. And let's see the content. The server executed the query. And over here, I'm going to look for what are the changes they have done. So there's no changes over here. So what I can do, I can see the response code, because this was a simple alert function, a pop-up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click, show response in browser, copy the URL, and paste it over here. Sorry, paste it over here. And you can see the reflected which I did is crawsec. So the most common thing, if an attacker simply finds some vulnerabilities on server side, it's look for something like your cookie parameter. So document.cookie is also moved. Show response in browser. Let's see the session hijacking part. So it was empty. None of the user was logging. So let's try to log in over here for the testing side. So we're going to use test. Okay, now let's see. Through the cross-site scripting, most of the attackers, they simply find the cookie parameters. And you can see over here, the cookie parameter that they were using, test and test. Because none of the user was authenticate on that. So sometimes an attacker simply use the simple scripts of JavaScripts to execute and to find the parameter values. For example, I'm going to copy this one in a real life website and let's try to search on this. Do you have search parameter? Yes, we have. Let's see this one. None of the people was joined. That's why you can see there was no pop-up. Let's try to join with admin and admin. This is a testing website. Now, if you try this one on over here, you will see a proper session of that. This is a session cookie, altro account. See, a proper session cookie can also be gathered over there. Is it clear, Gaurav? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Cool.
clear.
So the most important part, there are lots of search parameters that we can use over there. The repeated, yes.
हेलो या मेरा क्वेश्चन था यहाँ पे कि लाइक आपने बोला कि अभी कोई जो है वो आपका क्या बोलते हैं लॉगिन नहीं है सो सेशन में हमें कुछ कुकीज नहीं मिल पा रही है मतलब ये आप अपने सिस्टम की बात कर रहे हैं या नेटवर्क की बात कर रहे हैं या ऑल ओवर द मतलब पूरी वेबसाइट पे कोई भी यूजर एक्टिव नहीं है
अभी कोई भी यूजर एक्टिव नहीं है इस वेबसाइट में
ओके ओके ओके
क्योंकि टेस्टिंग वेबसाइट है अगर आप रियल लाइफ वेबसाइट में जाओगे तो आप लॉगिन करके उसकी सेशन की कुकीज को देख सकते हो ये भी एक बिग बड़ी वल्नरेबिलिटीज है इससे हैकर एक सेशन हाईजैकिंग एक प्रॉपर सेशन हाईजैकिंग कर सकता है जैसे कि आप यहाँ पे डेवलपर मोड पे जाते हो तो क्या दबाते हो F12 है ना अब यहाँ पे कंसोल में सारी की सारी कमांड मेरी लिखी हुई है यहाँ पे मेरे पे यहाँ पे डॉक्यूमेंट डॉट कुकी भी वहाँ पे ही है अगर मैं कुकी लिख दूँ कुकी है यहाँ पे है ना सिंपल अगर मैं यहाँ पे इसे एग्जीक्यूट करता हूँ सिंपल सॉरी एक सी यहाँ पे पॉपअप हो रहा है बट यहाँ पे कुकी नहीं दिखनी चाहिए ना मेरी
विजिबल नहीं होनी चाहिए
विजिबल नहीं होनी चाहिए और अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो स्टोरेज में यहाँ पे भी आपकी कुकीज स्टेटमेंट दे रखी है बट एक अटैकर ये तो आपके ब्राउजर की साइड से निकाल रहा हूँ मैं बट एक अटैकर आपके वेबसाइट के थ्रू निकाल रहा है सो दैट्स द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज सो दैट्स द इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट
ओके
For example, you can see the worker repeater. Is it clear, Gaurav?
Yeah, clear.
Yes. So let's move to the work of intruder, which is important. The bug intruder allows a tester to brute force or force the website portions of HTTP message and using customized payloads, which is your dictionaries. So over here, you can use intruder to perform a brute force attack on the specific parameter, but in this scenario, you should need a dictionary. To properly set up a customized attack in the intruder, a tester needs use of testing available in the 4 tabs, which is intruder. And the 4 tab which we were talking about, for example, let's see, let's take a parameter value. Look, 27 issues arise. 27 issues, and you can read about all the issues one by one. So verb intruder is also useful to find the loopholes on the server side. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take some parameter value. For example, over here, I'm gonna take a login part. Okay, let's move to the website. For example, intruder might be used for perform the brute force attack. So for this scenario, I'm going to use the sign up page, and over here we have a username and password field. So brute force is also used for broken authentication part. An attacker simply use some dictionaries which contain some username and passwords and they can simply use it to perform a proper attack on the both of the parameter, which is your username and password. So in this scenario, what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to look one by one. So सबसे पहले तो मैं इस पैकेट को इंटरसेप्ट करूंगा. तो इंटरसेप्शन करने के लिए मैं यहाँ पे प्रॉक्सी पे जा रहा हूँ. अब मेन आता है प्रॉक्सी. प्रॉक्सी में अगर आप यहाँ पे देखो, अगर आपका यहाँ पे प्रॉक्सी ऑन है और आप किसी भी टैब में क्लिक कर रहे हो, तो वो पैकेट आपका आगे जाएगा ही नहीं. क्यों? क्योंकि वो पैकेट आपके यहाँ पे कैप्चर हो चुका है. देखो, request to https www.google.com and 443. You can see a proper request which is from the client side and the domain IP address. HTTP history contains all the details that you have used it now. The www web, जो कि मैं बात कर रहा था आपको, status, length, type और उसकी comment type. Web socket history, you can simply check over here. You can drop the packet or you can forward the packet. If you forward the packet, you will see it will reflect on the backend browser also. Or you can simply drop the packet. But now the use of drop the packet will not work because the packet has been already moved on. So यहाँ पे जो हमारी important चीज है, interceptions के लिए हम लोग यहाँ पे तो request को hold करने के लिए use करते हैं. So for this part, what I'm going to do, we're going to perform a brute force attack on the username and password field. So सबसे पहले तो मुझे इस पैकेट को intercept करना पड़ेगा. तो मैं यहाँ पे 1 डाल रहा हूँ और यहाँ पे 2 डाल रहा हूँ और यहाँ पे interception on कर देता हूँ. Let's see and login. So अब ये जो पैकेट है यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो ये होल्ड ऑन हो चुका है. The packet is redirected to the burp suite driver. See. So over here, what we can do, we can simply right click on the field and I'm going to use the intruder. Send to intruder. Send to intruder, why? Because we're going to perform a brute force attack. The intruder has been highlighted. Let's drop the packet from here. No need, because we have already have the packet to the intruder part. So यहाँ पे मैं देख सकता हूँ कि इंट्रूडर के पास मेरा आ चुका है. मैं यहाँ पे अटैक टारगेट में उस टारगेट की वेबसाइट एंड यू कैन सी पोर्ट 80 या आप उस पोर्ट आप सिक्योर करने के लिए 443 भी यूज कर सकते हो. एंड द पोजीशंस आर इंपॉर्टेंट. पोजीशन मींस जहाँ आपका पेलोड आप सेट करोगे, क्योंकि यहाँ पे आपकी जो पैरामीटर वैल्यूज है वो आप देखो तो 3 पैरामीटर वैल्यूज है. एक लॉगिन है, एक यूजरनेम है, एक पासवर्ड है. और यहाँ पे देखो आप 3 पैरामीटर पेलोड को सेट कर चुका है. So what we're gonna do, and the length of the packets. और सबसे ज़्यादा important जो है यहाँ पे जो इस बुक में लिखा हुआ था, that you have to specify the 4 types of attacks. A tester will need to use the settings available in the 4 subtype of intruder, and it was talking about the attack type. There are around 4 types of attack: a sniper, a battering ram, a pitchfork, and a cluster bomb. So very first thing we need to understand what are the use of this sniper, battering ram, pitchfork, and cluster bomb. So we're gonna redirect our request. We're gonna open a website which is your burp suite swigger port swigger, and we're gonna use intruder. Burp intruder port swigger. Let's use this one. So you can see burp intruder is a tool automatic customized attack against the web application. It's extremely powerful and configurable. It can be used to perform a huge range of tasks, from simple brute force guessing a web directories through the active exploitation complex So how intruder works? Burp intruder works by taking an HTTP request, which is called your base request, modify the request in various systematic way, and each modified version of the request and analyze the application response to identify the interesting features. So it's all about to understand the behavior of the website. For each an attack, you must specify one type of sets of payloads and positions. Payloads are your dictionaries we are talking about. In the base request where the payloads are being placed, numerous methods of generating payloads are available, including simple lists of strings, numbers, dates, brute force, bit flipping, and many others. So you can see over here they have given a proper scenario that you can use for enumerating identifiers. But the most important part is your payload type. Use a suitable payload type to generate a potential identification test and using the correct format of schema. And the important thing is your sorting out the attack result. So we're going to look all the things one by one over here, but the most important part is to set a payload or a dictionary on the server side. So, so we were talking about the attack type. So where is it? Okay, wait. Okay, they are doing DVWA, but I'm going to look for the attack types to describe you. We don't have here also. Yeah, finally. So over here we have the types of attacks on the burp intruder. So we have sniper, we have battering ram, pitchfork, and cluster bomb. So let me tell you about the cluster sniper. Sniper is basically used to attack on a specific single parameter value used in a single set of payloads. It's target each payload position in turn and it plays each in the positions. So we have, but over here we have multiple parameter values. So we are not going to use sniper over here because think about it, the logics. If I'm using the username and the password, it will check the username with the password category. So it will check permutations and the combinations you can say. So over here, for the permutation and combinations, if I have a words of 10, let's make a word list. So over here, I'm going to write default word, admin, password, security, sec, infosec, warrior, test, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 words over here. So let's go over here. So I'm going to name this one burp. So I'm just making a dictionary of 10 characters. So permutation or combination would be like if I have 10 words, then it becomes 100. How? Because if I'm using it on the username, admin, it's going to try with admin, then admin password, then admin security, then admin sec, then admin infosec, and admin warrior. So if it didn't find with the admin, it will look for the password admin, password security, password sec, password infosec. So it's going to take all the 10 words into 100 words and it will make a permutation combination with the first parameter with the second parameter. It is cross verify. So over here, for permutation and combination, we use cluster bomb. But battering ram is also used for a single set of payloads. It iterates through the payloads and places them same payloads in the form of defined positions. Pitchfork So this is used for multiple payload sets. There are different payloads and that can be used in various steps. So the most important part is we're going to use the cluster bomb. This uses multiple payload sets. This is a different payload set for the defined positions. So over here, we're going to try to use the username and password, but there are 3 parameter values. So first of all, we have to clear this tags, this kind of tags over here, because we're going to attack on the username and password parameter. So for that, I'm going to clear the tag for each and every payload, clear all the tags. Now, what we're going to do, we're gonna attack on the uname and the password parameter. So I'm gonna highlight this one and I'm gonna add a tag. Why? Because we can do attack on the username parameter and we can attack on the password parameter also. So we have 2 parameter values now. So for this case, you can see we have 2 payload set and now we're gonna use the cluster bomb for taking a proper permutation and combination path. So for that case, you can go to the payload side and you can see the payload sets. In the payload sets, you can see you can load your own payloads. It's all about the dictionaries. So I'm going to load payload and I'm going to use the bug.txt which I created, which contains the same words. So over here, we're going to use the same dictionaries. So 2. And we're going to load the payload again over here. And you can see the 10 into 10, which is 100 now. So you can see one by one, all the payload has been set, and you can use a simply list, or you can use other different types of payloads for numbers and combinations, illegal, Unicode, characters block, cache modification. There are lots of types of things over here. So for this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to look for the parameter values and payload processing. And for this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to now I'm going to go to the options, and over here I'm going to use it for my proper threads. The proper verification, you can say. The number of threads means the number of execution process. So over here, what you can do, you can simply increase the number of threads according to your server. So I'm going to start the attack, and over here you can see the attack hasn't started with 100 words, but over here the result, the target, the positions we have selected over here, the payload type, and the options. So we're going to look for the result. So over here you can see all the things that has 302. Two means that the payload has, the client is redirected to a different resource. So let's see over here, the first one. So we write admin. Let's see the response code. You must be login, so it doesn't execute. Over here also, this one also, you must be login. So we didn't log in on the server side, but through the maximum length, if I use the maximum length over here and the status type, we can see there are some words like your test. The word we showed over there, it was on 67 requests, it was on 70 requests, it was in 97 requests, and it was on 100 requests also. So over here, if you see the 200 over here, in the response code, we have been logged in properly. Log out test. Because for the authentication bypass, for authentication, we have to check all the things one by one. See this one, show response in browser, copy the response code, send it over here. Okay, this was a different thing. Sorry. Yes. Show response in browser. Copy. Yeah, someone simply put it some accesses. They simply he put some payloads over there. So you can simply see that we are logged in and we have some error of SQL. There are different types of attacks that we can perform over here one by one. So the most important part is to check the attack type, the cluster bomb attack, and the types of attack. Over here in the burp suite, the most important part is to understand the behavior of the website. So you can see over here, the repeater is for requester. Sequencer. If you talk about the word sequencer are used in various types. They are basically used to transmit the client request in a proper sequence way. You can look over here one by one. This book completes all the things on the server side. If you want to decode or encode anything, for example, see this one. I guess this was on the sniper. And decoders with decoding with decoder. Burp suite decoder is just a tool that allows the tester to convert raw data into encoded data, or to take encoded data into convert it back into plain text. See. Decoder supports several formats, include URL encoding, HTML encoding, and base64 encoding part. So you can see over here we have a decoder. What if I simply write crawsec over there? Decode as plain text, URL, HTML, base64, ASCII, hexadecimal value, octal, binary code, or ZZ. So I guess this will be the thing. Okay, sorry, I was using the decode. You have to use encode because we have to encrypt the word. Sorry. So let's use crawsec. That's encode format in URL. So you can see the format has been changed to URL. You can use double encoding. You can encode it again with a URL. And you can use for another encryption standard for like your base64. You can add multiple to make it more secure, because it's all about to understand the how it works. So you can use smart decode. You can use smart decode for decoding part. So encode the burp suite decoder are basically used to translate or simply check all the things one by one over here for encoding standards. You can use comparer. Comparer are basically used to check. You can simply use it for comparing the two requests in a same way. You can paste multiple request parameter over here, and you can simply compare the result. What will be the impact? Extenders are basically your, you can say, your multiple burp suite analyzer tools. These are some analyzer tools that you can use for finding out vulnerabilities, like your .NET Beautifier, Active Scan. And what is the use of this one? You can see over here. I basically use over here Turbo Intruder over here, or you can say access validator. You can use all this one, and you can install this one also here. These are some, you can say, some scanners that you can use for multiple tasking, for multiple purpose, and many more other things. You can see one by one all the things over here. Blazers, Avast, cPins, project options. You can simply see the socket number of connection you can make for mixing proxy server. User options are like your platform authentication part. This is just like your scope method that we used for connection bed. But the most important part is to understand how the proxy works, how the spider works, repeater, and the decoder, and some other techniques. So you can simply examine all the things one by one over here, and the history part. So I will say over here, this books, which was Burp Suite, you can see all the challenges over here. But the first 3 chapters are important to understand how the Burp Suite works. Configure the Burp Suite is important. You can simply say all the things are given over there one by one, and they have different response. So the book name was Burp Suite Cookbook. You can see over here. And for manual pen testing, we basically use Burp Suite. For automation pen testing, we use Eccouncil, which is one of the best tool that we can use it for now. So there are various steps that we can follow